a video series about JavaScript, and in this series I'm going to discuss about all the chapters in this book called JavaScript The Definitive Guide, Master the World Most Used Programming Language. And in the first chapter of this book, they talk about the introduction to JavaScript, and for the first part they talk a little bit about the history of the JavaScript. So in this first video I'm going to kind of like talk a little bit like in a short form about like the history of JavaScript. So this is like the browser called Mosaic. I hope I pronounced it right. So this is the first GUI browser that allow like regular user to interact with like the browser. However, this browser is like very static, as you guys can see. There isn't any button or any interaction that the user can do more than like the hyperlink that open like a new page. So that's why in 1995 a company called Netscape started to think about like how to make the browser to be like more interactive. So Netscape had to route in order to make it happen, in order to make the browser more interactive. For example, when we click a button, we want to make some animation. When we hover over something, we want to get some interaction on that. So there were two routes that they chose. One is building a scheme language, and another one is like kind of like embedded Java into like the browser. And at that time, Netscape got help from like Sun Microsystem in order like to do the Java route, and for the scheme language route, it was done by a guy called Brandon. I do not know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to say it. I believe Brandon right now is working for, I think he's the founder of a browser called Brave. Let's see. So he is this guy right here. Yeah, he's the CEO of a Brave browser. So at that time they decided to go with the scheme type of programming language, and that programming language is known as today JavaScript. And JavaScript, it's a scheme language, and it's a first-class function, and their syntax is very similar to Java. And I think other than that, there aren't any similarity between this language and Java. And the reason that they call it JavaScript, according to Wikipedia, is like the marketing tool, because like Java is like very popular, well known at that time. That's why they kind of use the word Java in the language. So this programming language like JavaScript has been evolved a lot, and the first standard die of this language was in 1997. So there was like a community called IGMA that kind of like look over like this programming language and regarding like how to implement this programming language. And at the same time, like a similar time, like around this year 1997, Microsoft also like introduced another programming language that is embedded to the browser. It's called like JavaScript, and it's implemented in IE, Internet Explorer, while JavaScript was used in Netscape web browser. And these two languages are both like in the browser, and there are some similarity and some differences between this language, and they are like kind of like a battle between like these two companies, because at some point, like when you try to build a website at that time, you need to think, will it looks good on Netscape or will it looks good on IE? Internet Explorer. And in the early 2000, Internet Explorer have a big market share of 95%. So Microsoft have a lot of power and control to decide which programming language to be used in the browser. However, that changed a little bit when Netscape decided to reintroduce Firefox in 2004. So Netscape did get back some market share from Internet Explorer. And then there is another major event, which is in 2008. Let me just put 2008. Chrome decided to release Google Chrome, my favorite browser, which is designed with a V8 engine. So in 2008, there are three main company, like three big company, Netscape, Google, and Microsoft, that kind of like have three different type implementation of a language that used in the browser. So in July 2008, these three company decided to sit down and discuss about the future of this language. So in July 2008, I think in Oslo, I think it's a city in Europe, these three company decided to set down and agree on this new standard, ICMA 5 or ICMA 5th edition, that these three browser will implement. So ICMA 5, so this is like from the ECMAScript Wikipedia. So ICMA 5 is this one is the 5th edition. And this is also like a point that all the browsers support, because there's three browsers are like the three main browser. So ICMA 5 is kind of like the standardized that we all agree that every browser should support it. So that's why like ES5s have like a very big significance in JavaScript history. And it's a little bit tricky, a little bit like the way they name it. It's very it's not, so it's like one off. So ICMA 5 is referring to this one, which doesn't count. But if we look at from ES6, so whenever people say ES6, they refer to the 6th edition, which is was published in 2015. So it's like 1 year off. So ES6 is in 2015, ES7 was released in 2016, stuff like that. But the turning point is this one, while all of the company, like big guy in the space, decided like to sit down and agree on that. And the other reason that ES6 is like also like a significant one is because like in ES6 they started to introduce a lot of feature like classes, module that other languages have, and so that's why a lot of time you hear the word ES6 using with like JavaScript. So that's like a small summary of the history of JavaScript, and I hope this is helpful. Thank you. Bye.